Okay, start.
Once the tie rod end is off, then you move on to these two bolts right here. Oh, let me rephrase that. Take off this bolt, which is barely on there. Whoever did it before us really didn't care. And once this is loose, then you can get to these two. A 22 millimeter bolt and a 17. So I got a 17 millimeter wrench, and I got a 22 millimeter socket. My bad. It's actually 19 on the wrench. This gets kind of tough because it's really on there tight. I normally use my feet so you can hold it in place. Now, if you're doing this the opposite direction and you're putting an aftermarket spring on, this thing's gonna go like when you take it off. So be careful. You're gonna have load on it. It's gonna pop out at you. So take that last bolt out and just be careful. Once you got this loose, the strut's pretty much dangling. You got tie rod end off. You got the bolts out of your spindle, whatever you want to call it. And the top is the next spot. 14 millimeter deep socket. Show me. Come up here. There's 3 bolts at the top. Really easy. Be careful not to mess up the AC line or any of the brake stuff. Once you got it broken loose, you can just give a little bit of pull on the strut on the bottom. Should be able to loosen these up by hand after that. This really is a one-person job. It's fun to have somebody watching, but it's easy to do by yourself. Once you have those bolts out, you can simply just pull it out to the bottom. Make sure not to pull any brake lines or anything like that on the way out.
Oh yeah, you can put a W40 on the top of the area, so whenever you turn, it won't rub.
Well, this part right here doesn't turn. It's the part underneath it does. Oh. And here's what's left of a of a wheel bearing. I mean a strut mount bearing. This bearing is totally destroyed. It's actually supposed to sit here, but there's supposed to be bearings between there and there. So
I guess the spring coil was too low,
yeah,
too weak.
Something about it didn't work out right. So this actual strut mount needs to be replaced, or at least a strut mount bearing. If it happens on your car, make sure you put that on there. However, at the moment we don't have the money for that, so we're not going to be replacing that. It will survive without it. It will just be noisy as you turn, and eventually it'll wear out, so you don't want to run on it like that too long. I'd say 6 months or a year late at the most, but we'll see. Hondas are known for durability. You just need a Allen wrench and a 17mm on this particular model of the SI. Once again, if you're doing the factory and you're going to put in the aftermarket, when you're loosening this up, there's going to be a lot of tension pushing up on this. And if you loosen it up without pushing down on it or having a strut compressor, depending on the model of the car, it'll actually just fly up at you and hit you in the face. So you don't want to do that. Make sure you got a spring strut compressor or you know it's not tight. Because that spring's got a lot of force behind it if it's tight. Just make sure when you take it off, you put it all back in the same order. So I always put everything upside down, kind of right next to each other. And this is a lowering spring. Don't know what brand, but it's not very good. It's way too low. If you see the difference there, I mean that's at least a 3-inch drop on your car. Which is great if you're on the track, but if you're on the streets, especially in Texas, you do not want that. This really sucks. So you put the factory spring on, or if you're doing it the other way, aftermarket spring. Everything back in the order you got it off. Make sure that these springs line up. There's a part where it ends. It's not flat, so you want to make sure it's not like this, that it's actually over towards where this part is, this little wall. Same thing on top. There will be a mark where the factory one's set. You can see it squished down inside the little rubber there, right here. So you want to make sure that this right here lines up with that. So you put this right there. You can actually get this off there a little bit, line it up, and then push down on there. And once that's done, you put what's left of the